Well, hello, good evening, and welcome to the program. This is Sunday Politics live on Trust TV, where we delve into the pressing issues shaping our nation and beyond. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight on the program, we confront the looming specter of social unrest and economic turmoil gripping the country, as highlighted by recent warnings from the African Development Bank. The African Development Bank's cautionary words paint a stark picture of challenges facing Nigeria and its neighboring countries on the African continent. The removal of fuel subsidies, currency depreciation, and escalating commodity prices have ignited public outcry and sparked protests across parts of the nation. Nigeria, Ethiopia, Angola, and Kenya find themselves teetering on the edge of social unrest as citizens grapple with the harsh realities of inflation and economic instability. The African Development Bank's projection for the continent's economic growth serve as a sobering reminder of the uphill battle we face in the months ahead. It's imperative that our leaders prioritize the welfare of the people and implement policies that address the root causes of the rising cost of living, as indicated in the Africa Development Bank's report. Tonight on the program, we'll be joined by an expert who will help us dissect some of the issues and the recent warnings by the Afdb and help explore potential solutions to mitigate the risk of social unrest. But to get started, this past week, the National Economic Council met in Abuja to address this particular issue alongside many other challenges that Nigeria continues to face. So let's take a listen to this report put together by State House correspondent Kehinde Amodu.
At this meeting is that there will be no need for food importation at this point.
Nigeria.
Two issues have dominated these discussions: harmonizing tactics to arrest the spiraling insecurity across the country and strategies to crash the price of food items. Despite evidence to the contrary, Minister of Information says the President and state governors agree that there is a significant improvement in the security situation around the country.
The governors, including the governor of Plateau State, has also attested to the fact that despite all the challenges that we are having, there appears to be improvement in security in these areas. Of course, like I said, the situation has not been completely been solved. The security situation has not been completely solved, but we are seeing a positive movement towards a secure Nigeria.
But the level of insecurity is serious enough for the federal government to significantly shift its stand on state police.
This is still going to be further discussed. A lot of work has to be done in that direction, but both the federal government and the state governments are agreeing to the necessity of having state police. Now, this is a significant shift, but like I said, more work needs to be done in that direction.
But the government's biggest headache right now is the staggering prices of food. To this end, the National Security Advisor, the Director General of State Services, and Inspector General of Police have been directed to coordinate with state governors to fish out those hoarding commodities. Despite the seriousness of the situation, the agreement at this meeting is that there will be no need for food importation at this point.
Nigeria has the potential to feed itself and even be a next exporter of food items to other countries. And we do not also want to reverse some of the progress we have seen in terms of food production in this country. What we are seeing now is just a temporary difficulty that will soon go away.
A lot of meetings will have to happen between the federal government and the subnationals to perfect the modalities of achieving state police. In addition to this, parties have agreed to set up a joint program to ensure that unemployment is reduced among the youth population to reduce insecurity at the roots. From State House, Abuja, Kehinde Amodu, Trust TV News.
Right, time to take a look at the conversation a lot closely and interrogate the issues, especially one that has been highlighted by the Africa Development Bank, talking about how these promising economies like Nigeria and Kenya, for instance, are teetering on the edges of social unrest, largely because of how dissatisfied a significant part of the population are regarding the developments in all of these countries. But of course, for Nigeria, the scale of the problem is quite significant. And of course, we've seen some of those protests mark the conversation across different parts of the country. Now, let's get right into the conversation. Joining me on the program tonight is our policy strategist and analyst. Baba Yusuf is joining us this evening to help navigate some of the topical issues here in the country. Thank you most kindly for joining us on the program. Good evening.
Good evening, Abdullah. Thank you for having me.
Obviously, at this point, we're beginning to sound like a broken record, talking about these issues over and over again.
You can say that again.
We have a fresh, quote-unquote, perspective from the Africa Development Bank. You've had a look at their concerns, their points of view, their projections. What do you make of it?
Well, I think Dr. Adesina is just reiterating what a lot of the projections were saying a couple of years ago. The only difference is things are getting worse. That is a reflection, overall summary of what President of Afdb, Dr. Adesina, was saying or is saying. I remember a couple of years ago he raised this concern and concerns and mentioned that if drastic measures are not taken, things will get worse. I think the new element in his own conversation is the issue of the potential social unrest that will happen, which some of us have already been speaking about and have manifested, albeit government strangely is pointing to opposition parties to say it's an opposition thing, but we all know that it's beyond opposition.
And looking at some of the countries that have been mentioned, because for the most part, Nigerians like to think that this is unique to us, but this past week we've the rest of the world has been, greeted with stories of how the economic downturn is spread globally. I mean, Britain, the United Kingdom, generally speaking, just recorded yet another negative for the second quarter back to back, meaning that they're in a recession at the moment. But of course, in the Africa Development Bank's projections or report, it talked about Nigeria, it talked about Kenya, it talked about Angola and Ethiopia. Give me a sense of what this represents, because for the most part, Nigerians like to think about this situation from just a purely domestic point of view. How much of what is happening right now is not because of the quote-unquote half measures that the Tinubu administration is putting in place to mitigate the current trend?
In fairness to Nigerians, they have every right, Abdullah, to feel the way they feel and to think the way they think. Leaders have campaigned vigorously, and I believe they did that based on trends and projections they have done and strategized to know what is on ground. They know the numbers. Like I always say, they know the numbers before they took the mandate. The people of the country voted, and the outcome is we expected short, mid to long-term deliverables. That being said, yes, we are very much aware of the global recession. Food security or food insecurity is a global issue due to the Ukraine-Russia war, due to the issue in Gaza and other factors. But that being said, also, the complexities or the gravity of the issues depends on also the domestic policies and strategies put in place by the leaders. Of course, you mentioned UK that has been facing a lot of headwinds based on some what I call self-inflicted injuries. So if you want to contextualize Nigeria or to do a comparison of Nigeria and UK, I will say it's the same similar scenario. The Conservative Party, in the past 4 or 5 years have been facing a lot of change of leadership due to these policy issues that have put them in a corner. The issue with Russia has made them to have very high issues with regards to power supply and the cost, which is reflecting, on the cost of living. But parking UK aside, or Egypt or everywhere, or Ethiopia, regardless of the global issues, the disposition of government, in this case Nigeria, and the actions they are taking, and the, short to mid-term outcomes right from the time President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came into power. Recall he came into power with high level of expectations. A man that is coming with, a combination of skill sets that has never been seen in the person of a president in Nigeria before. So there were expectations, and of course, because of the situation in the country and the promises made by political leaders, not just the Mr. President, because today I would not like us to narrow our conversation to Mr. President, to also expand the conversation to subnationals. Leaders have made promises, they have been given mandates. They were not oblivious of the potential, effects of global issues vis-a-vis what they will do. So that being said, Nigerians have every right to feel what they are feeling, especially when they are not seeing any buffer or shock absorbers, quote and unquote, that will help them go through these challenges, or to see what I call the low-hanging fruits that government is able to achieve to continue to engender confidence and trust. Because the truth is, it's a reality that we have to face. But how we face that reality, especially how government faces that reality in disposition, in action, is what will continue to, renew that hope that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu promised Nigerians.
Yeah, right. And you talk about the frustrations, the emotions that goes into this, especially when we're talking about hungry bellies, we're talking about people unable to meet their daily needs, we're talking about soaring food prices that are, going through the roof right now.
Yes.
And we've seen some of the protests so far, albeit at a small scale. We've seen the organized labor, or the NLC, precisely talk about organizing a 2-day nationwide march just to drive home this particular idea. And of course, they've also notified the federal government about its intentions to embark on a strike in about 14 days' time. Now I think it's just counting down. Less than 10 days to go. Give me a sense of what the response of the government has been so far. I mean, we've seen the president set up that committee that's supposed to address this particular issue. Just this past week, the Minister of Agriculture also announced the release of 42,000 metric tons of grains to vulnerable Nigerians for free, even though the maths looks like it's just going to be a drop in the ocean compared to the scale of the problem. Give me a sense of some of those things that the government has put at national and subnational level to address this situation, and whether or not it's enough to make an impact.
I will use this opportunity to drop one or two words of counsel to this government, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, cascading down to the subnationals. We will not blame President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for not taking some actions or not reacting to some actions, so to speak, or some situations. I think what needs to be done by this government, especially the handlers and the strategy team of Mr. President, is to have some traction with regards to taking off action plan or action points. Recall that about 2-3 months ago, Mr. President, there's a committee that engaged the labor with regards to the effect or impact of removal of fuel subsidy and food insecurity, and some action points were reeled out, and promises and commitments were made, including these grain reserves that will be shared and all that, palliatives and all that. If you backtrack before then also, we remember around July, August, Mr. President declared state of emergency of food security. So all these things have always been done. But I think most of it has to do with the strategic optics. And the reality is, when I'm a student of what we call in School of Strategy promise-based leadership. In promise-based leadership, when you make a commitment of 10 issues and give timelines, from day 1 to day 10, and by day 6 or 7, you are able to say you have cleared off 6 out of those 10 action points. It engenders confidence. It shows you are on traction. It gives you also more confidence that you've achieved some short-term impact, that's the low-hanging fruits, and people naturally will continue to trust you, and they will have more confidence that more are things to come. That is on one part. On the second part is the pragmatic leadership, quintessential leadership. You are at the battlefront. We want to see leaders leading from the front. If you say we should shed weight, you should start shedding the weight before you tell us to shed weight. If you tell us to eat two meals a day, you should also equally start by eating 2 meals a day. What leadership, quintessential leadership does is, it will be very difficult for citizens to see that and to continue, being antagonistic. it's natural that they see the leaders consciously and conscientiously, behaving in a way and manner that they don't just speak to the rhetorics of feeling your pain, they actually share the pain with you.
Are you suggesting that the leaders and the followers are not on the same page?
We are not on the same page, absolutely. You and I know, and everybody knows, and that is why Nigerians are agitating, because you see the political class living lavishly, living expensively, and sharing money, if quote and unquote, in the sense that they look out for themselves. They take care of their benefits. They take care of whatever it is that is their welfare, regardless of the economic vagaries. I've not seen 10 to 15% cut down by the legislature or by the executive to say we are shedding off weight on ABC. You see the quarrel at the National Assembly during the budget defense, with regards to welfare, sharing of vehicles at a critical moment like this, when you have children that are dying of hunger, when you have families that are dying, people are committing suicide. The mental state of mind of Nigerians is going more negative by the day. So these are some of the issues. Like I said, the promise-based leadership is if all of us are the same page, because the leaders are also taking the same step. It is natural that people largely will follow suit. Of course, you have the opposition parties, you have the fifth communities, that whatever you do, they will still attack you, which to me is also beautiful for democracy, to put you on your toes. But largely so, there is need for government at state and national level to change this position with regards to that. That will make people to really know they are feeling them. And then further down the line, we'll discuss on why things are getting worse rather than getting better.
Right. One of the conversations that has dominated the national discourse over the past 8 months and counting was that statement in the president's inaugural speech. Subsidy is gone.
Yes.
Those were the president's words. But this past week, we understand that subsidy actually has not gone.
Yeah.
It's there, even though life is a lot much harder for Nigerians. We are well aware that now petrol subsidy is nearing 1 trillion monthly, which is quite bigger than before the inception of this administration. What do you make of that, especially when we talk about transparency and accountability in government? Because Nigerians are led to believe that, listen, we're trying to save money. This is no longer tenable for us to keep paying subsidy. But the reality is that even at the current price, the government is having to step in when publicly it's telling us that it has taken its hands off as far as the pricing is concerned.
When Mr. President made that declaration, on the day he made the declaration, some of us applauded. I will say I applauded that. I believe that subsidy should be removed, which is in tandem with all the presidential candidates, by the way. However, I have also in various fora mentioned that I would have expected, even though Mr. President took that step, to also quickly wait until he looks into what I called, and I still call, the book of reality. I've said it in this studio and other fora and in my writings, that what is that book of reality? Now, Mr. President should not take it for granted the indices we see by the various organizations, whether they are consulting or whatever, and also the handover notes that will be handed over to him by his predecessor. The book of reality is what he will see, the takeout of the precipitation of the facts and figures, as the case may be, after he takes mantle of leadership. That is the book of reality. For some of us that have grown in the leadership ladder to be CEOs and to lead, industries, we know. What you see in reality sometimes, or most times, is not 100% what you see in the handover notes. And the danger in political office is the optics is more of what they are looking for the people going out. So sometimes making such declarations or statements before you open that, what I call book of reality, may backfire. It appears this is what is happening, because Mr. President had a good intention to remove fuel subsidy, as is with the case with all the presidential candidates and some of us. However, you need to dimension the issues before you profile your strategy out of it. And because the strategy came most likely after the declaration, it becomes a problem to manage the optics. Now, with that, we can see he has to find a way, Mr. President, to continue to manage the economy. I like that about the president, the fact that he did not say the country must die because I say I'm removing fuel subsidy, I don't care what will happen, I will not do anything about it. Of course, it's a democracy, and he knows what it means not to deliver. But that being said, that is the hard lesson learned. I would expect that the government will be practical and pragmatic going forward in dealing with these issues. First of all, come clean with the fact that yes, we had to come back with the subsidy in another way, because we are all looking at the numbers. Nigeria is at its highest political awareness in the history of this country, and therefore we know that this is what goes to the states, this is what goes to the federal government, and we keep on asking, what is happening to that extra money? So you come clean with that. And when you come clean with that, you come back and look at the entire situation and come up with a strategy that will give you quick impact, mid to long term. We know that such an injury to the economy cannot be an injury that will heal overnight, but we also want to see decisiveness. You don't want to have 2, 3 to 4 promises you have made. Going back to that, my concept of promise-based leadership. You have made promises, and even for the promise one action plan you have made, you have not delivered 100%, and then it has dovetailed into promise 2. Do you get what I'm saying? So it also complicates your governance, because you have to deliver. There's cost implication, there's timeline implication, and there's ripple effect on the socio-economic, well-being of the country.
Do you think, in hindsight, that was a bad step or a bad decision to take? Looking back at what the ripple effects since that announcement or that position taken by the administration at its infancy?
Well, you see, for me, the removal of subsidy, the timing of the removal of subsidy is not an issue for me. It is 3 things. First of all, the strategy behind the decision taken. Secondly, the political will to pull through the action plans or the roadmap of that strategy. 3, living through the realities or the dynamics because when you do your strategy, what are the potential impacts? And what are the potential, backlashes? And then what are the counter maneuvers when these things take place? Was that kind of thinking process put in place before that decision was taken? Because a school of thought will tell you, if Mr. President hasn't done that day, he wouldn't have ever done it again. So it depends on how you see the cup, half full or half empty. We can sit down here and pontificate for whatever number of years as guys on the sideline, but they will tell you the spectators of football don't know how the footballers are facing it in the field. But what I know as a strategist, as a policy analyst, and an active player in governance is that you must have formulated a strategy before you take that action. And if you do that, even within the framework of your strategy, you must have plan B. That if this happens, we are going to move to this scenario. All those things are things that I expect the strategy team, the economic team of Mr. President to have been doing and to continue to do based on the unraveling dynamics of politics and socio-economics of the world and of Nigeria. If that is done in a practical and realistic matter, is another issue that I'm beginning to worry is not the case as it is.
Let's talk about the commentary so far. It has been politicized to a great extent.
Yes.
Whether it's the PDP speaking on the state of affairs or the Labour Party, and we hear the response of the presidency, to say, listen, even the protests are sponsored by opposition, and it makes light of the issue. It glosses over the reality that, listen, PDP, APC, non-partisan individuals are still reeling from the current economic realities in the country. What does that do in minimizing the approach towards addressing this issue? Because it does look like, this blame game going back and forth about who is actually responsible and what needed to be done for us to make progress.
I think the government needs to backtrack and review its communication strategy, Abdullahi. When you are facing this kind of situation, you have very small room to maneuver with regards to optics and managing perceptions. You move from there and now come and bring out a playbook of managing expectations from managing perceptions. Listen, Labour Party, PDP, APC, people that are non-partisan, the security forces that you send to quell the protest, the army and everybody goes to the same market, buys at the same price, okay? Hunger does not identify with ethnicity, with partisan politics and whatever. So let's backtrack to see people are inciting others. There is nobody that is okay, that is doing well, that will be incited by another person. It goes without saying. So, coming back with this is actually giving the opposition relevance. making them look active and doing what they are supposed to do, which if you ask me, they are not. As far as I'm concerned, the opposition parties in this country, for now, they are still somewhere trying to think of what to do. Either to join the mainstream party, or to go into political oblivion, or to try to get themselves together. But this narrative coming out of the political party, as far as I'm concerned, is giving relevance to the political parties. And I think the focus, this is not just at APC, because we have PDP governments as subnational, we have other political parties leading as subnational. Like I said, it's not just about the presidency. It depends on who is ruling where. But the point is the entire political class are performing below expectations regarding of political parties. So what the government needs to do is to focus on delivery rather than doing what I call running and trying to pinch your nose at the same time. What you will do is you enjoy your nose. You focus on the journey, focus on the objective and deliver. When you deliver, you see, Nigerians have a short attention span just like they have a short memory. And it's everywhere in the world. Deliver and people will forgive you. Let us start seeing the quick wins. Let us start seeing the prices of items tapering down by, if I am part of President Tinubu's team, I want to come week 1, week 2 and say inflation is going back by so numbers. But forget about the PowerPoint presentation. That somebody goes to the market to buy, a mudu of gari or a mudu of corn. 10 naira less than he or she bought it last week is enough indicator. It's enough indication that we are seeing less narration of violence, of killing, of maiming, of raping. Just this afternoon, you are aware, I read on Daily Trust today, how they killed people in Kajuru, in Kaduna State, and in another area in Kaduna State where a former director of CBN and 50 others were burnt. So you see, these are the things that I expect government to start quelling. And we still start seeing these numbers going down, not just as indices, but on practical reality, that people themselves will start saying, this government is doing something good, let us cut them some slack. That is what I'm expecting to see at federal and subnational levels.
What we've seen over the past 2 weeks is this crackdown, so to say, seemingly, that's what it looks like. In Kano, for instance, we've had the Anti-Corruption Commission go after some warehouse operators to say, listen, why are you holding all these products? And we're also well aware that, the headline inflation that we're dealing with, especially with regards to commodity prices, part of it is being exploited by middlemen and people within the market system itself. And of course, always linking it to market forces. But of course, we've also seen that significantly being adopted by so many other subnationals. So many states saying, listen, nobody is carrying food out of this state anymore. We're trying to get ahead of this situation. Let's manage it. Here in Abuja, we've had one of the major supermarkets being shut down because of the price, irregularities and so on and so forth. Do you think these half measures are enough to inspire confidence within the public to say the government is trying to do something about this outrageous prices?
To be honest, it's still boiling down to the optics. Now, let's dimension this conversation, Abdullah. I will start with the last. The closure of Sahad stores. I think it's a matter of an organization that is supposed to protect consumers, trying to live up to its responsibilities based on the situation. Why is it that in this country, it is only when there are crises that you see organizations like regulatory agencies, law enforcement agencies waking up to start pretending as if they are doing their jobs? Why do we have to celebrate that Sahad stores, there was an intervention at Sahad stores, which we have found out is not actually the same way it was, colored in the public domain? Come on. We are in a serious situation. I hear, the Niger State governor is on the news. He say bulk purchases, should be stopped. I'm very interested in Niger State, by the way, by virtue of interest. With all due respect to His Excellency Governor Obagu, I think that is not a solution. That is creating more problems. And I give you a simple reason. You stop bulk purchases without excusing the hoarders, because I'm going to deal with the hoarders issue. You stop bulk purchases. These bulk purchases are not just done by the hoarders. Niger State is one of the food baskets of Nigeria. Every day I know areas like Kuta, like areas on Shiroro, we supply Nigeria with the chunk of the yam that we supply to Nigerians and other staple food items coming out of Niger, for example. Now, if you say you stop bulk purchase, you are throwing away the baby with the bath water, because you have good, credible, responsible business people that are part of the value chain and supply chain of food in Nigeria at the time we are facing food crisis. So you are creating a bottleneck within an already impaired supply chain to people that are going about doing their legitimate business, that are supplying to Nigerians that need this food and they have money to buy the food. Now, within the framework of this bulk purchase, I didn't hear isolation of what? Perishable items. Some of these items are perishables. So these farmers, instead of protecting them, they have perishables. We supply onions, tomatoes, and all that. Within a particular...
It could be counterproductive?
Absolutely. You don't stop bulk purchase. You deal with the factors that drive inflation to push these hoarders out of the system. Hoarders are leeching unscrupulously on what? On demand and supply. Because if you deal with the issue of supply to ensure that the market is flooded with food items, a hoarder will go and bring out his food. I'm not saying you cannot contain them, but the way and manner you are going about it is throwing away the baby with the bathwater, because at the end of the day, it is still the poor man that will suffer. I tell you why. Because out of 100% of what will be taken away, because of the fundamental human rights, because we are not during Buhari's initial time. We are in a democracy. And these people go to court or whatever, and at the end of the day, they are able to recover, if not all, some of these products. Guess what they will do? They will hedge the loss and add the cost on these items, and who will suffer again? The citizens you are trying to protect. So I think government should sit down, or governors should sit down and look at the critical drivers of the economy and the critical drivers of inflation. I give you an example. The policy incoherence that is going at the federal and state level. Within 2 months, Abdullahi, the Nigerian Customs Exercise reviewed import duty 5 times. And the import duties are benchmarked against the dollar. Now, this is not rocket science to know why the dollar continues to go strong, why the naira continues to go weak, because we are chasing shadows. We are not looking at the critical issues. So you have agencies that are bringing policies that are negating the policies of government that are supposed to support the poor, that are supposed to support entrepreneurship and ease of doing business for the legitimate people. And for the hoarders, what defines hoarding? If you come and look at a shop with 100,000 tons of grains and you say it's hoarding, what defines hoarding? And I give you an example. Olam's Agri Nigeria, I read it today, has taken an action to stop off-taking of maize and sorghum due to what? Escalation of price. This is a major off-taker and a major employer of labor, by the way, in Nigeria. The same thing with those bulk purchasers. So within your actions, you must make sure that there won't be a negative ripple concomitant effect on the people you are trying to protect just for the sake of grandstanding and optics. Do you need to be conscious of the action and think it through? Like there may be an initial, what you call a Lagos Palace initial gragra IGG. But after 1 month or 2 months, will that action be sustainable? Will it be, impactful on the overall well-being of Nigerians? Or will it be counterproductive when we have over 44,000 Nigerians have already started migrating to Niger due to hunger? And you are busy, doing things that I think are not as impactful as they should be. I think there should be a rethink in the overall policy formulation, coordination, and execution by government.
Well said there, and we're going to take a quick breather. When we come back, there's a lot more to delve into, especially as we look at some of the measures being put in place by the government to address the inflation, especially one that has to do with food prices that are going through the roof, keeping Nigerians up at night, and of course, bringing about the sense of frustration and dissatisfaction about what the current economic climate is like across the country. When we come back from this break, we'd love to hear your thoughts, your views, your suggestions as far as this conversation is concerned. As a Nigerian, where do you stand on what is happening and what has been done to address the gaps that exist within the current economic system that we have in the country, and what the government is doing to address those concerns that you do have? More on this one after the break. Welcome back to the program. Thank you very much for staying with us on Sunday Politics on Trust TV. A quick reminder, you can join the show on the go by joining our YouTube and Facebook live streams. As always, follow us across our social media platforms so you can stay in touch with all of the contents available on Trust TV. The conversation is one that needs no introduction. Nigeria is currently grappling with a variety of issues, but at the heart of the conversation is that most Nigerian households are not finding it easy to put food on the table and to go about their legitimate businesses on a regular basis. Beyond just the insecurity that has become pervasive across different parts of the country is the socio-economic situation where we're dealing with a cost of living crisis in the country. And according to the African Development Bank, Nigeria, Ethiopia, Angola and Kenya are at risk of a social unrest because of the current situation regarding the economy, soaring food inflation, families unable to afford basic essentials on a day-to-day basis. What does that signpost for Nigeria, the most populous black nation in the world and the largest economy on the African continent? This is the part where you get to chime in, join the conversation, add your own voice to the conversation we're having tonight by giving us a call. Rules of engagement: quickly turn down the volume of your TV set and try and be as concise and articulate as possible so we can allow a lot more views here on the program. With us in the studio, helping us navigate and analyze some of these issues regarding the state of affairs in the country is Yusuf, a policy strategist and analyst. We do have our first caller on the line. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the program.
Good evening.
Who do we have on the line?
Yeah, good evening, Ahmad Abdullahi.
Right. I believe we have Shamaki on the line, right?
Yeah, it's Shamaki from the Transit, yeah.
Shamaki, as always, good to hear from you. Thank you very much for joining. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, once again, good evening to guests in the studio.
Thank you.
Actually, the cost of living in Nigeria, it became sympathetic and unfortunate. I'm telling you, people can no longer eat food again. Even 1 square meal, people can no longer eat it again. The problem is that the business people are increasing commodities in the market every single day. You can imagine today the bag of cement is 10,500 naira. Mudu of gari is 800 naira. These are the things that a common man can be able to buy and use it, and he can no longer buy it again. So my advice here is Mr. President should please revise the home price of fuel. I am telling you, if he does that, all these things will go down drastically. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Shamaki. As always, appreciate your contribution to the various conversations on the program. This is echoing what many Nigerians have been saying, because as far as most Nigerians whose basic understanding of economy is cause and effect, subsidies started all of this particular mess, and there's a need for us to reverse it. But before I get your thoughts on Shamaki's take, let's get back to the phone lines. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening. I believe we are having some challenges there. Try again, call back. The number is on your TV screen. Just your reaction to what the government can do to bridge the gap, the information gap, so that Nigerians really understand. Because for most Nigerians, it's easy to fix this thing. Just revert the oil prices and the PMS price, and then everything will be good.
Like I said earlier, the government needs to review its communication strategy to be more factual, more sensitive than optics, because the situation in the country is you cannot manage perception anymore. Recall what I told you. You should not start managing people's expectations than managing perception. And if that is done, whether or not you revert, we are having this conversation with a friend of mine 2 days ago about if they reverse the pump price of petrol or they reverse some of these policies, will the prices go down? Have you ever seen any price go down in Nigeria? Because the factors that will determine...
Is it impossible
for the prices to go down? Yeah. I will tell you, based on the realities of economics, it is going to be very difficult to price the prices to go down. But what I will do, I will advise is to ensure that we peg it, we contain it immediately. Then maybe in 6 months, with the right economic policies and actions and strategies, then the prices can start receding. But we cannot, that is the danger of where we are going now. You see, when this dollar is going to hit 2,000 very soon. The danger is, economic to go down is easy, but to recover is very difficult.
Right, okay. On that particular thought, let's just segue to the phone lines. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Welcome to Sunday Politics on Trust TV. Who do we have on the line and where are you calling from?
Yeah, this is Ibrahim Pocha. I'm calling from Kebbi State.
Ibrahim from Kebbi, thank you very much for joining us on the program. Go ahead, Ibrahim. What is your take on this conversation?
Oh, yeah. Honestly speaking, I want to recommend the effort of the guest and the studio. And also, as he said, honestly speaking, Nigerians are suffering, and the government has to do something to reduce the suffering of the masses, most especially those that are buying the foods, the traders that are loading things to go to our neighboring countries for selling. Right. So I think the government has to come up with a policy of buying enough of food in order to save the less privileged from suffering. I think that is what is supposed to be done. Right. And I also want to thank the guest for that his contribution.
Just before you go, Ibrahim, what is the situation like in Kebbi? Because Kebbi also is renowned for trade in this particular area. What is the situation like when we're talking about food prices in Kebbi?
In Kebbi, in general, actually, as usual, as always, things are high because the price of grains are high, most especially like rice, like maize and all of that. One measure of rice costs 1,700 naira, like guinea corn also 600 to 700 naira, sorry to say. So as you can see, and also the millet also, which costs a major is 700 naira as well. So the cost of living is always in increase, actually.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Ibrahim, for joining the conversation. Really appreciate your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, you are welcome, sir.
You talk about Niger, you talk about Kebbi, you talk about Benue State, who literally has the tag of food basket of the nation.
Yes.
These are states that naturally you would expect that because of the abundance, the prices is going to be contained, but reverse is the case.
Yes, and
how do you explain this, irony
trend,
or anomaly?
Yes. That's trend. 3 to 4 things, but let me add to what Ibrahim said. Brilliant contributions, Ibrahim and Shamaki, by the way. You see, you can see the answers of solutions coming from Nigerians. You are trying to address the issue of hoarding, and you are stopping bulk purchase. See what this gentleman said. Government, buy these products and resell to the communities, to the people, at a more affordable price as a form of palliative. Why not do that? Why seize these items, lock them somewhere where they may get rotten or wasted, by the way. Right. Now, talking about...
just before you land, let's get back to the phone line. I believe someone is waiting to give a contribution. Hello, good evening, welcome to the program. Your name and where you're calling from, please.
I'm Raymond Friday calling from Gombe State.
Raymond Friday from Gombe. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. Please go ahead, Raymond.
Yes, sir. So the price of the food commodity is going higher, and the masses are suffering in Nigeria. So the only thing that Nigeria country will do in order to reduce the level of food commodity to go higher is let the government take quick action so that they will buy food at the lesser price and share it to the masses so that they can affordable to pay the little token of amount of money.
Well, thank you very much for that, quick thoughts and contribution there. Raymond, I really appreciate you joining the conversation tonight from Gombe. You were just piggybacking off of this particular comment. There are some people who say, listen, even the 42,000 metric tons, we've had concerns about our grain reserves. And we also heard from the Minister of Agriculture during that appearance at the Nigerian Senate, when he explained that, listen, the Buhari administration last year didn't make the necessary preparations, so to say. He stopped short of indicting the Buhari administration's commitment towards, the agriculture sector to boost production that can guarantee some level of security as far as availability is concerned. There's some who believe that we don't even have the 42,000 metric tons to begin with to put out in the market, or even for free.
You see, the danger we are in is that, like I said, there were 2 to 3 critical action plans rolled out, which include taking out from the strategic grains reserves to share as palliatives. We are yet to hear a report of what has been done and what has been ticked up, and see people with testimonies of receiving those interventions. That is not even the issue. Let's assume for the purpose of conversation that the 47,000 tons, metric tons are available. You know the rules of subtraction without addition. It means we are depleting our strategic reserves. Now, the global warming indicators have shown us that production this year will be less. Now, that is even without putting the big elephant in the room, which is insecurity. That is consistently pulling people out of the farms. And then you have global warming. So you have a global food insecurity issues. So what we're expecting is within the whole framework, that's why I'm talking about policy incoherence, to have within the policy framework, as you are taking out, what plans have you to replenish?
Right, exactly. Okay.
Because if you don't do that, in the next 5 to 6 months, because when the rainy seasons come, we will see naturally there are food shortages during the rainy seasons. Without these issues of insecurity, issues of global warming, and issues of taking from strategic grains reserve, which until today, I will stand to be corrected, have not really impacted in any form on our people at federal and state level. Because we need to see testimonies and receipt from people to say we have received it. So it means that by Q4 of this year, we may have a disaster. And let me say this to land before we take the next person. There is a connection between food insecurity, okay, and health, and education, and poverty. Because this agriculture produces not only food, raw materials for industries, and medicine, raw material for medicine for healthcare. And then because of malnutrition, there's high infant maternal mortality. There is malnutrition. People are dying due to hunger already. And of course, crime and criminality and all that. So there's a connectivity, beyond just for supplying the food itself. And that is why you talk about the social unrest and all that. And government needs to have that in its consciousness. And when the team are speaking, they should speak to themselves. So that 5 times you increase custom duty and you are blocking people from selling things, telling them they should not increase price, while government in its own wisdom is increasing its own price on the populace. How do you expect prices to reverse? Talking about removal of fuel subsidy. If you remove fuel subsidy and all these indices you are adding on the economy, there is no alignment. There is no alignment, and the right phrase to use is there is no policy coherence. In policy strategy, we call it policy coherence. There should be a handshake between these organizations that are churning out all these policies, what I call policy acrobatism, and what I call imitation madness. You copy whatever you see in America, you copy from this one from Japan, and everybody is coming to conjure all manner of magic and economics that will not work here. And that is why Nigerian custom will be increasing import duty 5 times during an economic crisis without explanation, without due regard to the people that are importing and the sensitivities and the sensibilities of what is going on in the country. And you have a CBN governor you are chasing to say he should do monetary policy, and they are not aligning it with fiscal discipline.
Right. And in talking about those 3 other countries that have been identified alongside Nigeria by the Africa Development Bank, speaking about this potential for social unrest, Angola, Ethiopia, and Kenya. Give me a sense of what they are doing over there to address this same situation.
Well, in Africa, we have similarities in our thinking and disposition, and that is why we are not making progress. And that is why the African story is not such a palatable one. We refuse to learn from each other. We refuse to see reason why things should change. We are shouting about dictatorial tendencies in the Sahel, and suddenly a president, a democratically elected president, sorry to digress, because it's part of the issue, decide to extend elections to give room for this kind of issues. So Kenya, they are taking some drastic actions to say they will speak to the people. The manner in which the William Ruto administration is speaking to the Kenyans is slightly different from ours, and I think our policy. Say
that they have been here for quite some time since Ruto came into power. They've been dealing with this particular situation.
Yes. Also, Ruto has a similar situation with President Tinubu. Right. He was part of the government, albeit there were issues at the end. So he inherited some of these issues and is trying to struggle, although he also brought out policies, just like Tinubu, that is backfiring on him. But what is important is in their case, you see some semblance of difference in how they manage their communication with their citizens. But importantly, the policies. You see Egypt, the drastic action they took to say they are not going to transact in dollar again. They are going to transact in their local currencies.
Right.
That is drastic, that is radical. And those are the kind of actions we should take as Nigerians to see how we can come out of this. Otherwise, we will continue to be enslaved to these multilateral organizations that have no interest of Nigerians in their hearts.
Right, okay. We're going to have to leave it here for now. Unfortunately, we're ending on a bleak note because the situation is rather bleak and we would have loved to end on a positive note. But of course, the conversation continues. But Yusuf, as always, thank you most kindly for the expert analysis. Really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here, and we pray for Nigeria. We pray for God to grant our leaders the wisdom and the enablement to do the needful. But importantly, when God answers your prayer, you should walk.
Right. Okay. That is a very good note to end the conversation tonight. Thank you most kindly for joining us on Sunday Politics. We'll be back next weekend live on Trust TV. My name is Abdullahi Ahmed. From myself and the rest of the team, thank you for your time and company. We'll see you next time.